Hello, St. Johners and friends, and thank you for joining us for this Easter morning message. You'll notice things are different now than they were in any of the earlier videos because I was thinking about the whole process of recording behind a pulpit to an empty church, and it just didn't quite seem right. To be honest with you, most of what I want in ministry is to make a place where people can connect person to person. So anytime we can turn and face each other, anytime we can create an opportunity for worship in the round where you are looking at one another, for me, that is the best of worship. The location, the place where worship is happening is where people meet each other. Me standing behind a pulpit preaching to an empty room, just kind of not really the same thing, right? So I was thinking that these videos are not for the gathered masses. This video is for you, whoever you are, watching this video now. This is a chance for you to hear a message and take from it what inspires you, what you might need or want this week. And I'm going to give you a little homework because you alone, as magnificent as you are not the whole story. So your homework is to find a way to connect with other people during this week and maybe share something you've heard or agree with or disagree with. Heck, you can call me up and complain if you want, as long as you're reaching out and making those connections. There are some existing good ways to meet with people even now. We have an early morning reflection from 8 to 8:30 on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. If you're part of a chalice group, you know those are continuing. And Joetta has put together a way to do small group gatherings online. Information about that will be coming out on Monday. And I hope you take advantage of any of those opportunities, or just call up a friend or a family member or a church friend and say, hey, this is on my mind. I don't want us to get so caught up with surviving in this time that we forget to make a space for the deeper conversations. What is on your heart? How your soul responds? These things matter. And I want there to be a place and a way to speak to those things specifically. So that's enough of an introduction. Assuming that you are at home with me, I would invite you to light a chalice if you have one. And when we light a chalice, we oftentimes say words that are written by other people, but maybe it's enough just to light the flame and reflect on what you might need in this hour. Patience, breath, endurance, connection, silence. The flame of the chalice is only an outward expression of the flame that burns inside all of us. Tend it with care and let it guide you. So I am supposing that you are listening to this on Easter, a time that is special in so many ways, whether it's Easter bunnies or sacred stories. Actually, it's also Passover, and the Iranian New Year, Nowruz, just passed. It's not really just Iranian, it's celebrated all over the Middle East. All these celebrations, all these important holidays come at a time when spring breaks forth for a reason. Most holidays and holy days are attached in some way to the cycle of the season. If you were to plot out all of the Christian holidays over the course of a year, they tell one story, the story of the birth, the life, the teachings, the death of Jesus. So if this is true in Christianity, it's true in a lot of religions. A lot of different people tie their stories, their sacred central stories, to the way the seasons turn. No matter who you are or what tradition you're from, I'm willing to bet that you grew up with stories that helped shape the way that you think about time. Some of us grew up with stories of an epic battle at the end of time where good and evil would fight it out. I know. Sometimes it sounds like a Marvel movie, but the great myths and the great religious traditions are much older. Some of us grew up with stories of this earth being created, destroyed, and created again and again and again, more times than we can imagine. Whether you grew up learning about time from an expectation of revelations, or whether you grew up with the promise of reincarnation, I think you have inside you, taken for granted, a way that you think about time, how it should be used and spent, where it's leading to. The challenge this week might just simply be this. Think about your own story of time and tell your own story of resurrection. There's no better way to celebrate Easter. Just to get you started, I've got 2 stories for you. The first one has to do with the little town I live in. Every spring, there is a street fair, and everybody goes out, and there are rides, and there are games, and there are little things to buy, and it's a lot of fun. It's all a fundraiser for the schools. This year, we got a notice that for the second time only in the history of this program, they're suspending it because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But the story of the street fair goes back to 1919. In 1919, the schools had to close down because of the flu. What amounted to the Parent-Teacher Association of the time got together and realized that the schools needed a boost. They needed money, and they needed encouragement, and they needed some fun to help recover from the epidemic. So they created Mayfete, and it was suspended during World War II, but other than that, every May, people have gotten together and celebrated. They've taken something that came out of a hard, hard time and turned it into a cause for laughter and beauty and fun. The second story is about the Dunham Recreation Center. A few years ago, I had occasion to be there on a regular basis. And if you don't know Dunham Rec Center, many years ago, it was the Gurley Farm, I believe. And when the tuberculosis outbreak really hit Cincinnati hard in the late 1800s, they created the first municipal tuberculosis hospital there on the farm. At its height, this hospital had 600 patients, 14 buildings. They offered schooling for children. They offered everything that you could need, and they had the fresh air and the wide open spaces. Of course, the other part of that was that by the time people made it to the tuberculosis hospital, they were very, very, very sick, and many of them did not recover. We, as a society, eventually got a handle on tuberculosis, and eventually the hospital was closed, and the city decided to use the land for a rec center. So if you go there now, you have a wonderful building with lots of classes on photography, on archery, on arts, on dancing. You'll find that there is a pool, and there are ball fields, and there are places to walk outside and be with nature, and it is lovely. Well, this one particular night, I was there at Dunham, and it was storming. It was raining buckets. And there was a group of girls who were taking part in this program called Girls on the Run. They were running, they couldn't run outside, so they were running around the building. You can imagine this group of girls running up the stairs, all the way down the hall, down the other flight of stairs, across the basement, back up over and over again. And as they started to wear out, and you could see in them the signs of tiredness, that they were not in the fun part of the run, they were in the struggling part of the run. I thought about all the people who had been in that building, who had been struggling for health. They've been struggling to breathe. I thought about how all of those stories might be kept in the walls, and how these girls now, with their laughter and their running, with their complaining about having to run, what a blessing that was. What a blessing it is to be able to run for health and no other reason. And what a transformation of a place. What a story of resurrection. I don't know what stories you might have, what stories you have of coming back to life again. But I suspect they're good stories, and I hope you find a place and a time to tell them. Until we meet again, be well.